Hey, hi, hello, it's me again. My name's Katie, and this is my YouTube channel. On here, I talk about kawaii fashion related stuff. I'm going to be doing hauls eventually. Um, I talk about like my personal life, I talk about my Furby collection. I just talk about things related to me. So if you think that I'm a cool person or think that I'm interesting, make sure to like and subscribe and all that jazz. And today I want to talk about my experience being friends with a covert narcissist. So, covert narcissists are a very interesting type of narcissist. They're not as easily spotted as like the grandiose narcissist. I ended up doing a lot of research on this after I realized what was going on and after somebody helped me understand what was happening because I'm autistic and I'm not really great at understanding what's going on in social situations all the time. But they they helped me understand and they showed me some information about covert narcissists. So a covert narcissist is someone who has like a victim mentality, who um, puts themselves in situations or sort of like, I guess, represents situations in a way where they are a victim all the time, as opposed to like a grandiose narcissist where somebody is basically like the hero of their own story and they think that they're like the hottest shit ever. Um, a covert narcissist is going to be somebody who like fishes for compliments, as opposed to a grandiose narcissist would just compliment themselves. So that's like an example of the difference. But this relationship was bizarre. Um, so I made friends with this person a while back. They were targeted by the same group of bullies that I was online on TikTok. And they weren't targeted as bad as I was. I think they were just sort of, they felt sort of like dissed by them and like um not as like invested in as they felt that they deserved by this group. Um while I was like an definitely like a bullying target. Like these people would have live streams about me, and say that I was like a horrible person and just all kinds of stuff that like they could not possibly prove. And they attempted to prove it by twisting my words and twisting my friends' words, and they didn't do a very good job of it because eventually everyone who was involved, other than like the main two or three people, ended up apologizing and realizing that those people were just bad people. But anyway, that's beside the point. So we met because this person had felt like they were not cared for by these people. Um, and I was in the process of looking for somebody to help me get into Santeria, which is like sort of, it's basically the religion of like African people mixed with indigenous people, that came out of like, the slave trade and colonization. That's what Santeria comes out of, is the process of colonization of like the Caribbean and South American, Central American stuff like that. Um, so she was a Santeria, and I was looking to learn more about, my heritage and stuff. And so she sort of used that as a way to like get in to being friends with me. Um, and she sort of like self appointed herself as my godmother, which for a little while was really good because I learned a lot. Um, and I definitely gained a lot of like knowledge and practice through working with this person, but the problem was that they also wanted to be friends at the same time, and being friends with someone who's also your godmother is not always like the best idea, because when they're your godmother, they're sort of like an authority figure, and being friends, you're on the same, level, so it confuses things. So definitely don't recommend having a godparent or someone like that, a spiritual advisor who's also like a best friend sort of situation, because it makes things very complicated, especially when you have somebody who's a covert narcissist who's playing both those roles. So for a while it was fine. We talked a lot and I learned a lot very quickly. um, I was really interested in learning as much as she could give me, but after a while, like, there was no more information to be given. Um, and she would have me doing rituals like all day for like hours. She would have me doing rituals while on the phone with her. And if you know anything about Santeria and any other sort of like, you know, physical spiritual practice like that, you have to be able to focus on what you're doing in order for it to be effective. And she, I don't know. I guess it was because she needed like attention so badly, but she would not let me focus on what I was doing. She wanted me to be on the phone with her. Um, and it became a real problem because she wanted me to be on the phone with her for like 6 to 8 hours a day. And she taught me tarot reading, which is not traditional to Santeria, but it was what she knew, and so that's what she taught me. It can be transferred to like regular playing cards, which is more Santeria, but that's not what we did. So she taught me using tarot cards, but I started to see some like issues pretty early on whenever she would have me do a reading and she didn't like the way that I was reading the cards. Um, and it wasn't that I was reading them incorrectly, it was that she didn't like the way that I was interpreting them, and she would make me redo it and redo it and redo it until she got an answer that she wanted. Um, so that sort of like made me uncomfortable because like I knew that that's not how these things worked. Like the answer was the answer, and the spirits don't just like, you can't just like ask the spirits over and over and over again until they give you the right answer. So eventually I got to a point where I would just like tell her what she wanted to hear so that she could stop making me read cards because it stressed me out. um I also like didn't like being on the phone with her because I don't like being on the phone because it's really hard for me to like go back and forth in conversation because of my autism. It makes it very difficult for my brain to like interpret and understand spoken words and then respond with any sort of like quickness, you know what I mean? So it was very stressful just to like be on the phone, and it was really exhausting. I don't have a lot of like social energy, and she was demanding all of my social energy every single day. When I say 6 to 8 hours, I mean 6 to 8 hours every single day. She would have me on the phone. And at first I felt really bad, like that I owed it to her to be on the phone with her, because she had like a lot of like problems that she had going on. Like at first she had like this relationship that she was having problems with the married man. Okay, that should have been my first red flag, but it was not, because she sort of sold it to me in this way that like he was very unhappy in his marriage and that he was going to leave his wife for her and all this stuff, which never ended up happening. That's a whole different story. But she also like lost her job. Her mother had passed away about a year before we had become friends. So she used all of those things as a way to like make me feel bad for her and make me feel like I owed it to her to be there for her and be kind to her and give her what she wanted. Um, and another thing that came up whenever we had been friends for a little bit was that both of her dogs passed away, which is legitimately like super traumatizing. And I totally understand like having issues with that. But the way that she used her misfortune as a way to like get things out of people right in front of me was very strange. Like she would be on the phone with me running errands, like going to get food or going here, going there. And every time she went into an establishment, she would tell these people, these perfect strangers that were working, um, that, you know, all about all of her problems that she had going on. And they would give her free stuff. And then she would do it over and over and over and over again. Every time she went into a new establishment, it was the same thing. And I thought that that was like really, really weird. So that was another tip off that like something was not quite right about this person. She also would like do this thing where whenever we would have any sort of like argument or something, she would try to convince me that I had some sort of like spiritual attack going on. And that was why I didn't agree with her, or that was why I was telling her what she didn't want to hear. As opposed to maybe I just had like a valid point and maybe like she was not, you know, maybe she was in the wrong. Like that was never a possibility. It was always that there was some sort of spiritual attack going on. So um, that was kind of weird. Another time we were doing a reading and it looked to me in the cards that she had some growing to do, like some emotional growth needed to happen. And she said, oh, well, I'm, you know, this age and I've already done all that growing and I'm done growing and, you know, I'm good. That's not true. So that was like super weird to me because I've never believed, and I don't think any healthy person believes that they're ever done growing or that they're ever done like learning lessons. So that struck me as odd. Another time we did a reading, or maybe like we were just talking and we were like, I was saying that she needed to let this guy go because it was creating a lot of stress for her and by extension me, because every time she was upset about this guy, she would come to me to like cry about it. And so of course it was stressing me out because I didn't want to listen to her complain about her relationship problems for 6 to 8 hours a day. Um, and so I was like, hey, like, you got to let this guy go. Like, he's got a lot of issues. Like, you need to be in a healthier relationship. And she, instead of like taking this as advice, she took it as a spiritual attack, which was really weird. So basically, like, anytime that she heard something that she didn't like, it was a spiritual attack, not necessarily that like something needed to change that like made her uncomfortable. So um another issue that would come up was that, like, you know, like I said, I'm really bad at like communicating out loud and I prefer texting. So I would want to text her, but she didn't like texting, and she would use her neurodivergence as an excuse as to why she didn't like texting and why she couldn't just text me, um, which was like bizarre. And later on, she would say something along the lines of like, oh, well, I don't want you to use our text messages against me later on, which was like, what are you going to say in text messages that I could use against you later on? Like, that's a little weird. Another thing that would come up was like her total lack of respect for my boundaries or like my personal time. I would say, you know, oh, I need to rest today. I can't be on the phone all day. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to hang out with my boyfriend. We're going here, you know, whatever. And I would tell her I'm not available to talk on the phone, but she would still be blowing up my phone the whole time. And like completely disrespecting my boundaries. And when that wouldn't work, she would like tell me that she had some sort of like emergency or something like that. Um, and it wouldn't be an emergency. It would just be she just wanted to talk. Um, like she would just like make stuff up to get me to answer the phone and like talk to her. Um, so that was really weird. But what really like tips me off to like the narcissism in particular was number one, she was constantly the victim. She never had any part to play in any of her problems. She refused to, like, if she was acknowledging her part, it was in a I'm a horrible person, like manipulative kind of way, not really like being down on herself sort of way. It was like she was trying to get me to say that she wasn't a horrible person, you know, stuff like that. And then also like constantly digging for compliments and constantly like asking me if she looked good or asking me like how important she was to me or like, you know, stuff like that. It was made me very uncomfortable to like to be aware that she was fishing for compliments and then just to like give in to that and not, because I don't like when people do that. I don't like when people fish for compliments. It makes me uncomfortable. So that was weird. Um, but also, you know, this idea that like every time she got an answer that she didn't like, it was a spiritual attack, and it wasn't that she needed to do something different. Um, so all of those were like very weird, and like the idea that she had reached a certain age or like a certain point in her life where she didn't need to learn and evolve anymore, like very odd to me. Like it was very bizarre to me that somebody thought that they had like reached a point of like total evolution and that they could not possibly advance any further. Like that was just beyond comprehension for me. And also like the complete lack of respect for my boundaries was very strange. I had never been in a situation where I would tell somebody I need to do XYZ and I can't talk, and then they would still try to get me on the phone. Like it was very strange, even as somebody who has autism, who is not good at understanding social situations. And she would use my autism as a way to like speak over me, I guess. And she'd be like, well, you just don't understand because you're autistic, in like situations where I definitely did understand, and autism wouldn't make me not understand the situation. You know what I mean? um there were other times where she had told me, like, so I have, like, that issue where it takes me a little minute to, like, understand what you're saying. And when I would pause a second, or like say, sometimes when I need a little more time to, like, process what you're saying, I'll say what, even though I actually heard you. Um, and she would get really, really mad at me when that would happen. And I'd be like, this is a part of my disability. Like, do you not understand that? And she'd be like, no, you're just not listening. You're just not listening. You need to try harder. Um, and she, before we had become friends, she was um, a special needs educator. So that gave me the impression, and she also, like, said to me directly, like, verbalized to me that she understood autism, but she clearly didn't, or like she didn't. I don't understand, like, I guess maybe she didn't understand autism as well as she thought she did. And, like, refused to accept that, like, adults with autism are very different than children with autism. And just because, I'm verbal and I can speak most of the time doesn't mean that, like, I'm as functional as, like, a non-autistic person. So yeah, she would use her previous position as an educator for autistic children as, like, a way to speak over me and tell me, oh, well, that's not how it works, or you just don't understand, or something like that. um and all of those things just made me really uncomfortable. And I had other friends, but she would get in the way of those friendships. Like, she would tell me that she didn't like this person because she just got a weird vibe from them. Um, or like, one of my friends, she didn't like them because, like, their username on TikTok had a word in it that she didn't like. Like, the word was mayhem. She didn't like the word mayhem. So she was like, you need to stay away from that girl because of her username. And I think it was just a way of her trying to, like, keep me cut off from other people the way that narcissists tend to do. Um, and it worked for a little while. But when she came after somebody who had been a very good friend to me, who had, um, just always been there for me, always been very kind, and always been very understanding to me, I had to stand up for them. And she really didn't like it. And she got really, really mad at me. Um, and that's when I started to, like, talk to other people about it. And they were like, that's weird. You know that, right? And I was like, yeah, it's kind of weird. And then I ended up, giving one of my friends, like, the whole lowdown on, like, everything that had been going on, because she gave me this feeling like that I had to keep everything between me and her, like, a secret. Like, she didn't want me talking about anything that we talked to each other about to anybody else. And she was, like, very specific about that. But eventually, like, I was like, this has all gotten to be way too much. And I told one of my friends, and they were like, this is, like very, very obvious narcissism. Like, these are not normal people things. And one thing that I remember telling my friend was that she had said one thing. She had said, like, oh, I don't like this group of people, or I don't remember. She basically said that she didn't like this group of people. And then later on, a few days later, she said, oh, well, I would never say that. I don't believe that, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you literally just said this, like, a few days ago. And then she accused me of like gaslighting her. I was like, no, like you literally said this. Like, do you not remember? And I think that she was trying to like gaslight me into believing that like I hadn't heard like this hour and a half long rant from her about how she didn't like this particular group of people. Um, so it was just like that right there was like a big red flag for my friend. Um, like that super clear inconsistency. Um, and that's when she was like, "Wait, I think we're dealing with like an actual narcissist here, like a for real narcissist." And so at that point, I decided to do kind of like a test. Um, and I said, look, like, I really need to take some time for myself. I need to not be on the phone as much. It's exhausting for me. And I like explained very thoroughly to her that like I really needed her to start texting me. Um, and she refused and she was blowing up my phone. And I was like, you have to text me. I cannot talk. And she just refused to do it. And instead of just texting me, she decided that we didn't need to be friends anymore. So that's how we stopped being friends, was because I couldn't be on the phone with her for like 6 to 8 hours a day, and I just needed her to text me, and she wouldn't do it. Um, so yeah, that was nice. That was fun. We were friends for like a year, and I'm still kind of like recovering from it and recovering from like the way that she really like took over my life for that year, and was like in complete control of like everything that I said or did, like in person, online, in my relationships, like everything. So, yeah, my friend was a covert narcissist and I had no idea. Um, Apparently, autistic people tend to be really easy targets for these types of people. So if you've had a similar experience, let me know how that went for you. Like what happened? How did you figure out that they were a narcissist? How did you get out of the situation? Have you had like an exact same, relationship as this, or, whatever? Just let me know and let me know what you think of the whole story. But yeah, and I guess I'm gonna go ahead and get off, and I will see you guys in the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe and all that jazz. Bye.